Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to make this menu where these menu items have an underline effect. So you want to start off by creating a new pen on codepen, or creating a new project folder, and inside that this is going to be index.html basically. And I'm going to start off by typing. Create a nav. This nav will have a class. We'll just call it l-nav. I'm just using the BEM methodology, trying to. And inside that we create a list with a class of cmenu. It's called component-menu, and then this list will have 4 links. I'm using an emit abbreviation. So what this basically did is I created 4 list items, each containing an anchor tag with a class of c-menu underscore link. You can name these classes whatever you want. I'm just trying to use the BEM methodology for this. I'm just going to put empty hrefs over here for now, and inside here I'm going to give these names: portfolio, about, blog, and courses. Alright, and after this list we'll just add a button, and this button will have a class. Call this c-menu button. Alright, so that's it for now. Just gonna put in some boilerplate CSS first. So just gonna say margin 0, padding 0. And now we'll start customizing our navigation. We're going to set the height of the navigation to the full screen, so that's 100 viewport height. We're setting the position relative because we're also going to set the z-index, meaning this navigation is going to be on top of every item on the web page. That means even on top of the content, even on top of the main, even the header and everything else. But first I'm just going to set this up. Okay, so we'll just set up z-index anyway. So z-index, we'll just put some really big number. Then we'll say transform, translate y, And we're going to translate it across the y-axis, 100 viewport height. So now you can see it goes off completely. Okay, let's just add a transition. Now you don't see anything actually, because we've translated everything across the screen, above the screen. So we're just going to cancel this for now. And you can see because of that transition, it looked like it was sliding down. So if I turn this off again, you see it slides back up. Great. Now we need to customize the list items, right? So let's grab the menu. So you can see the dots have gone. Now let's target menu items. Color is, instead of white, we're just going to say RGBA. Sorry, there's some construction going on in the background. There's nothing I can do about it. I've been trying to make this video all morning, but this construction doesn't stop. So let's just get on with our work. So we set a text decoration to none, so that removes the underline. And now we're going to say display inline block. Set the display to inline block. We set the margin top to 2 rem. Great, it looks big now. There's some space. We set the font size 4 rem, so it becomes big. Yeah. And now we set a transition to 0.3 ease. So right now it doesn't do anything, but we need to add the underlines. So let's see how we can add the underlines. We'll add the underlines and then the button, and then we'll animate them. Let's see menu link. So when we, sorry, not that. So for the underline, we're going to create a pseudo element after these links. So we do that by putting a double semicolon, a double colon, and then writing after. And then you have to set these things. You have to say content colon with nothing inside it, because if you don't do that, you're not going to be able to see anything. Right now you don't see anything, but let's start adding some stuff. We'll say width. This width is going to be 100% of its parent element, and its parent element is going to be this item. So for example, the C menu link after for this, when we set the width to 100%, it's going to be 100% here, the full length of portfolio. Likewise for about, the after pseudo element is going to be 100% of itself. So let's see that. We also have to set a height so we can see it. So right now it has a height of 0. You still don't see it because it doesn't have a color. So let's add a background color. We'll just call it RGBA. We'll give it a little bit of transparency. Okay, still you will not see anything, but now you should be. Display block, and there we go. Now you see these underlines. Great. Now we're gonna set the transform of this. We're gonna reduce the size of all of these things to 0. So transform scale 0. That means it's got no width at all. So we're just gonna add a transition so you can see what's exactly happening. Let it load. If I remove this, you can see but we have a problem. The animation is happening from the center. So there's something else we have to do. We'll just say transform origin left. Now it'll animate from the start. Great. So we need to make this line grow when we hover over the items, right? So right now when we hover over these items, nothing happens. So the first thing we'll do is make this slightly brighter, which is why I set the RGBA values to 0.8. So when we hover over it, we'll just make the link look proper bright white. So for that, say menu link, hover, color, actually, let's just copy this line, bring it down here, and call it 1. Now, when we hover over this, you can see the color change. It becomes slightly bright white. It's very subtle. I hope you can see this across the screen. Secondly, we want the underline to expand. So let's see how to do that. We just simply add .c, the menu link. When we hover over it, the after pseudo element is going to transform back to the full size, which is scale 1. And we'll also say color RGBA, sorry, not color, we'll say background RGBA 255 255 255 1. This is bright white. So now we've also set an animation which is 0.3 seconds, so you can see it turns from this and scale 0 to this. Alright, now let's start adding the CSS for the button. Right now you can see the button is just a tiny dot. So let's add the CSS for that. Let's customize the button. So we'll call this menu button. Under that, I'm gonna say C menu button, and we'll set the background. For now, we'll set the background to white. Border none, outline none, width 32 pixels, then height 32 pixels, cursor pointer, and transition 0.3 seconds, and ease. Now let's make this button appear here. To do that, actually we're going to use the same CSS to create the closing button. So we'll create another modifying class for this button and say that a button with a class called close will appear here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add a modifier class over here. I'm gonna say C menu button close. So .c menu button close will have a position of fixed, top 1 rem and right 1 rem. So now it'll appear on this side. Now let's add the cross, the two lines to make the X. For that, we'll use the before and after pseudo element. So let's do C dash menu button before and C dash menu button after. Both of them, just like before, will be content null. Okay, width 32 pixels. Right now you can't see anything because we have to add a height and a couple of more things. Say height 2 pixels. Display block. Position absolute, and we'll set a background white. Now obviously you don't see it, that's because this is white and so is this background, so we'll set the button background to none, and there you go. Now there are two elements here, both 2 pixels, one is the before, one is after, but you can't see them because they're right on top of each other or they're really close to each other, so they look like one entire element. So we're gonna have to change that. So .c dash menu button before will be transform rotate 45 degrees, and we'll do the opposite for after. Let's call this after, and for this we'll say minus 45, and there you go, that's an X. Now what we want to do is we want to actually create a header which is under this nav, so that when you click on the header hamburger menu, then this navigation slides down. But right now we can't do that and we won't be able to see it because this navigation menu is on top of everything. So for now, we'll slide this back out, and then we'll start creating. So we'll just create a header, and this header will contain some logo. We're just gonna say button is equal to, this button will have the same class as menu. C dash menu button, but this will have a modifier of open. Header, we'll give it a background of some color, let's say light blue. Right now you can't see anything. Say position fixed, top 0, under viewport width, and that should be okay for now. Let's just add the class here. And there we go. So this is our header. And now you can see the X is here, but we want the X to come on this side. So we're just gonna say maybe some div for the logo. So we'll say div dot logo. And then in the header, we're gonna say display flex. Flex, and we'll say justify content. Space between, and now this gets pushed over to the right. We'll just keep this 1 rem from the right, so it'll move back a little bit. There you go. Now this button has to look like a hamburger sign, not an X. So we added a class called cButtonOpen with a modifier of open. So let's define that class. We define close looks like this. Okay, so we'll say here that this is going to be a close type. So we have to define what this type is going to look like, what the open type is going to look like. Very simple once again. Just copy these, paste them down, call this open, and we'll change these to something else. Top 8 pixels and bottom 8 pixels. Alright, so this is supposed to be 8 pixels from the top of the button, and this is supposed to be 8 pixels from the bottom of the button. But right now it's set relative to the header because the button is not set to relative. So we have to set the button to relative. And there we go. So now what we're going to do is when we click on this, the menu should slide down, and when you click on that button, on the close button, then it should slide back out. So we're gonna add some JavaScript for that. So window.unload is equal to a function. Inside this, we'll just call a function called menu buttons. And we'll define menu buttons. We'll grab both these menu buttons and add an event listener to them, a click event listener. For each menu button, we are going to add an event listener. And we'll call a function called toggle menu. Then we'll define a toggle menu function. So we'll grab the menu, okay, lnav, class list dot toggle, we'll create a class called isOpen. Now let's add that isOpen class to our CSS. We'll add .l-nav is open will be transform translate y. We'll set this to 0, meaning when it's open it will not be shifted up off screen, means it'll come back down. There we go. So, like this video if you liked it, if you found this useful, and subscribe for more like this. I'll be putting a link to this CodePen project in the description, so you guys can check it out over there. I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.